Hello there, this is Travis Tipton. This is PIDP 3230, Evaluation of Learning, and this is assignment number 3, Informal Assessment Strategy. So in this assignment, I've elected to do a video on researching a cat. Well, what exactly is a cat, you say? They're animals, but in this case, in this context, they stand for classroom assessment techniques. So what exactly is a classroom assessment techniques? Well, they provide a few things for an instructor within a classroom. First of all, they allow quick and easy informal assessment of your class. The second thing is they help the instructors see what the students are understanding. And the third allows feedback to the instructor and vice versa. Now, there are quite a few cats that I looked at in the classroom assessment techniques book, and I've decided to do one a little bit different than the ones that are there. I decided to, I'm taking a little bit from a couple of them. The first one I'm taking one for is the minute paper, as you can see here. All right, so the minute paper is a very good and effective one. And allows the students to write down some of the things at the end of the class on a half sheet of paper. That's why they call it a minute paper, and that's why there's a countdown clock. However, I also like the other one, which was called the muddiest point, and the muddiest point being something that is not clear for the students in regards to the classroom lecture or homework assignment or reading or anything like that. I like them both, the minute paper and the muddiest point. So what I've done, I've actually combined them, and I've created something called clear water, brackish water. So brackish water in my industry is basically salt water that is kind of muddy. So you have clear water, clear salt water, and brackish water, which has affluent from fresh water, murky water from rivers, etc. This little video actually comes from the Fraser River in the affluents into the Strait of Georgia. So we have a clear water, brackish water, basically a clear point and a brackish point. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of this? Well, the purpose of my cat would be to enable the instructor to determine how well the students are learning, what they are teaching, and what students find least clear or most confusing about a particular lesson or topic. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about how we're going to do this. So using index cards or scrap paper, the students will answer 2 questions. The first one is, what was one thing that was very clear to me today in this lesson? Something that's clear, something clear water, okay? The other question is, what was the brackish point today? What point made me feel that my ship was sinking? So let's talk about a little bit of the strategy and the context in this. So some of the strategy and a little bit of the context is it can be used at the end of a classroom session or in regards to a homework assignment or reading. Instructor must leave enough time at the end of the class to ask those 2 basic questions and allow their students to answer. Must indicate what they will be used for and what type of answers they're looking for. So for instance, whether or not they want one-word answers, phrases, or short sentences. And when I say indicate what they're going to be used for, you have to inform your classroom that your students that you're going to be using them for feedback. At the end, collect the response, let the students know that next class sometime will be voted to give the feedback. Unlike Mr. Burns here. Here are some alternate ideas I had for it as well. First one, you can actually change the questions around. Maybe you can ask, well, what was the high point, or what was the most aha moment I had today? Secondly, instructors could allow these questions to be discussed in groups. So instead of having an individual response, have your students come into groups of 2 to 3 or 4 and discuss what their brackish points and their clear points were today. Third, instead of at the end of class, the students do this cat at the beginning of class after a reading or homework assignment. I have mentioned that before, but I wanted to just add it here just because sometimes you say, oh, here, read this, and then come back and let's talk about it and have the students do the clear point, brackish point, or clear water, brackish water at the beginning. You can answer some of these questions too. Why, how, who, and when. So what are some advantages of this CAT, this classroom assessment technique, or this particular one I designed here? Well, they provide instant feedback to the instructor. It does. The instructor gets them, reads them, and can look at them. Very little prep time, and it's quick to analyze. You can analyze it by grouping them together, the like points together, and the unlike points together. Allow students to see that the instructor actually cares about what they think and say. I've been through many schoolings, and you can totally tell when an instructor cares about their education and when they do not. If the instructor does go over the answers the following class, students realize that they may not be the only one struggling with a particular concept or idea. So sometimes students sit in silence thinking, okay, I'll get it eventually. But if you allow this classroom assessment technique, they can quickly see that, well, maybe then I'm not the only one. Allow thoughts and questions to remain anonymous, because I find that many students do not like raising their hand in class for fear of looking silly or embarrassed that they asked a stupid question. Allows the instructor to see where the students are at in their learning and perhaps focus more on the more brackish parts of the lesson. As well, the students are learning about self-assessment as they are analyzing two different points within themselves. So this is all part of adult education, self-assessment, and this is the foundations of it, looking at two alternate points, what was good, what was bad. And then finally, if students know that they'll be asked these type of questions, they will likely be more attentive in class in order to better prepare for the reflection of that topic. So those are some of the advantages. Let's talk about some of the disadvantages now. Okay. There is no wrong answer in any of these questions. That's the first thing I want to point out there. But first of all, I wouldn't overuse these. Students kind of will kind of get tired of it very quickly if you do it all the time. I would say maybe once a week, maybe twice a week. Focus on what the students don't understand should be coupled with what they do understand or like the most. So you don't want to just concentrate on the brackish water. You want to concentrate as well on the clear points, clear water as well. It may be easy for the instructor to get frustrated when some students are still struggling with the lessons they thought was very clear. You could have a perfect lecture, a perfect answer, and yet some students will still struggle. So it's important not to get frustrated. It may take some time for the students to develop good self-assessment skills as well. I know it's taken me a long time to self-analyze myself and self-assess, and for a new person at it, it can be quite tricky. Finally, instructor can be put on the spot. It's another disadvantage, and perhaps may be unable to answer all the questions. There's been many times where I've been asked a question and I simply don't know the answer. My response always is, I don't know the correct answer to that question right now, but I'll find out and get back to you. But some instructors don't like being put on the spot. All right. So we've talked about some advantages, disadvantages, some of the principles and stuff like that. So let's talk about now best practices and feedback. Feedback's very important here. How am I going to feedback to my students? Well, first of all, each student sees things and learns things differently. All right, we're not all the same. Even in my school, in my Marine campus, we're all different. Even though we're all sailors, we all have different ways of learning. You must take time to respond if you feel irritated with the responses. So again, it goes back to that disadvantage. If you see that there's a whole bunch of responses that are, I thought I made this clear, but you can't be irritated by them. You just have to take a breather and then get back to your students in perhaps the next class. When giving feedback, allow time to be flexible, especially if you're going to do it onto the next class. Allow you have some allotted time, and allow enough time at the end of the class to allow your students to write down the answers to the questions that you ask them. Some questions may lead to others, so allow a good chunk at the start of the next class to go over stuff. You have to be flexible. I've often found that, if I have asked feedback from the previous lecture or previous class, I spend part of that next class going over a lot of those answers. If you can't answer all the questions due to time constraints, assure your students that you will be available for office hours. Finally, let your class know that topics may still feel brackish even after feedback. Even after you answer the questions, some topics may take a few more minutes to clear up and be part of a bigger picture. It's really important that you have that flexibility and you allow students to the time to comprehend and to understand everything that you've gone through. Anyways, this comes to the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Here's a list of my references today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to it, and I look forward for the feedback. Thank you very much, and have a good day.